Welcome to the Introverted Doctor podcast, dedicated to uncovering myths, mistakes, and misconceptions that hold healthcare professionals back from having better interpersonal relationships with their patients and colleagues. In each episode, we focus on different aspects of a doctor's professional life, such as communication techniques, mindsets, routines, habits, and behaviors, with the goal to show how to eliminate anxiety, trip-ups, and unwelcomed results that come from ineffective communications. I'll reveal research routines and will have guests in future podcasts that will help shine light on a particular topic. At the end of this podcast, I'll summarize the key tips so that you can apply some of those that may be right for you, and so that you can start living a more fuller life at work, home, and play. I'm your host, Dr. Lalit Chawla, and today we're going to talk about what it means to be an introverted doctor. Now, since this is my first podcast and episode, I'd like to share a little bit about myself and perhaps really answer the most popular question I get asked. People always want to know, how did I become a big stage illusionist, performing 2-hour stage shows, and why or how did I switch gears and enter into the world of medicine and become a doctor? And many people think it must have been real easy to become an illusionist and speak in front of hundreds and thousands of people and perform, but I can tell you it wasn't. I really didn't get involved in the world of magic and illusions until I was 17 years old. And that's really late in the world of becoming a professional illusionist. I was basically a science geek, nerd, and essentially an introvert. Without getting into too much detail, in high school, I always had the desire to go into medicine and become a physician. It really fit my personality and interests, as I was shy and was totally afraid of speaking, publicly or talking, and certainly never thought I'd end up talking and performing on large stages and doing it successfully. I ended up getting into the world of magic and loving it, and then performing smaller shows, which led to bigger shows and then some TV appearances. And now I've been really lucky to be lecturing, performing many parts of the world and at many prestigious medical conferences and universities. I've been really fortunate to have learned and still learning how to communicate more effectively, whether it's with one person or with a large group of people. So how does that relate to being a doctor? And what is an introverted doctor? It may surprise people to know that a doctor can be introverted, and probably most physicians are introverts to a certain degree. There's so much learning and information from an academic point of view, and it takes a certain level of internal quietness to study all that information. There's a lot of cerebral thinking going on. I think when some people say, I could never be a doctor, it's those people who have a higher degree of self-expression. So being an introvert is really good when it comes to learning academic information. But in a clinical setting where you have to talk with patients or your colleagues and staff, it's a whole new ballgame. As an introvert, we need to extend ourselves outwardly, in other words, become more of an extrovert, and to connect with patients so that we can find out what's really ailing them and also share ways to make them healthier. But it's not always easy to do this. If you are an introvert doctor, some of them just figure it out. Some of it do it very well, and others not so much. And subsequently, the relationships suffer. I don't know about you, but I've avoided many conflicts and even let people bully me because I just didn't know how to deal with it. The worst case was when a doctor, literally he pinned me up against the wall to show me who was boss, just so that he could control me and the environment. And let me tell you that was a crazy situation, but I was a young doctor and I didn't really know how to handle that type of conflict. And I was certainly upset and I felt stuck. So as an introvert, it became really challenging. And an introvert, it's certainly a spectrum. So from people who are very shy and quiet and really need that space to more outgoing. But we do have to work harder to communicate with others, and some doctors know how to do this, and some of us still struggle to figure out some solutions which help us. But in the process, when we're working our day-to-day lives at work and at home, we can feel, drained by the end of the day. And when we really have opportunities to optimize the situation, and that can help others and help ourselves as well. So learning to communicate effectively is not something you learn that well in medical school or training. We kind of learn as we go. Now, certainly as an adjunct professor in the Faculty of Medicine and looking at other universities, we as an educational institute are working on developing the medical training curriculum, because we know that communicating effectively is a huge aspect in terms of creating a meaningful doctor-patient relationship, and equally important in determining a person's long-term success. I believe it was the Carnegie Foundation, and there's been other studies that have showed this, but there are 3 elements that determine a person's long-term success, and in any area of study, whether you're a cook, whether you work in IT or a computer person or secretary or a doctor, it doesn't matter. There are 3 areas. One is our technical ability. So if you're a secretary, that means your ability to type. If you're an IT guy, your ability to figure out the computer problems. If you're a cook, your ability to make, great meals. If you're a doctor, your ability to diagnose and treat. So that's the technical aspect. The second aspect is how well are we able to relate to ourselves? In other words, how well do we manage our energy? How well do we, deal with our internal mental dialogue? How well are we able to be motivated, have the energy? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we exercising? Are we eating right? So, are we able to show up on time? So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is how well do we relate to other people? So how well, are we able to deal with conflict? How well are we able to, meet their needs and express our own needs? How well do we, interact in a larger group? So just the communication aspect. So that's the third element. And when they looked at all 3 elements, they discovered, and this really surprised me, but of a person's long-term success, only our technical ability, 10% of our technical ability really determined our long-term success. 90% really determined, of our success really determined how well we were able to regulate and improve ourselves and how well we were able to communicate with others. In medicine, we spend so much time in the technical aspect, and sometimes we just don't really get to the finesse of the last 2 parts. So I'm not saying that the technical aspect is not important. I mean, if I'm going to have my appendix removed, I want to make sure the surgeon knows where and how to remove the appendix and not remove my gallbladder. So the technical aspect is important, but learning how to be better balanced personally and how to better negotiate and navigate relationships with others, that's a huge aspect where we just don't learn that much in medical school. Now, I know personally, being an introvert is a blessing when it comes to obtaining knowledge and creating, plans and learning. But I know, talking to so many of my colleagues and people I've trained, that it can make us miserable when we're trying to share our knowledge with others or trying to understand what ails the patient, especially like when we're taking the history. Creating trust and helping patients is really the goal most doctors have, and is one of the core reasons why so many people went into medicine, or why people go into medicine. They're extremely bright because of their introvert nature and have a natural desire to help people. People in healthcare are really extremely service and contribution oriented. But today, more than ever, it's become more challenging as we have greater expectations to perform. There are tighter demands on our time, more treatment options are available, and healthcare providers are being pulled in so many directions, not to mention the complexities of a patient's personality and what they bring to the interaction. Many doctors who I've talked with who are introverts secretly struggle to a certain degree to be more extroverted, and they admire other doctors who seemingly do it so well. And many are surprised to learn that there are simple strategies that are easily learnable and doable. I've learned them over the years, and part of my job in this podcast is really to shorten the learning curve and make it easier for whoever wants to be a more efficient communicator. And I've learned some things, kind of the hard way, and I'll share with you stories of that, some funny and maybe some not so funny. But anyway, because underneath all of this, we as clinicians, we want to learn better ways to connect with patients and not get burned out in the process. Knowing how to do this and knowing that there's a gap that can exist, that there are better ways, but not knowing how to do it, can make us feel miserable. And because most of us, we really function at a really high level, and we want what's best for ourselves and others too, in and out of the medical arena. And I'll be honest with you, when I was really nervous to start this podcast, and I really delayed producing this. But I really wanted to help young medical learners and residents become better with the way they can relate to patients, so that they can understand the process better, and that there are simple and usable techniques that are available. I've also, over the years, have had many doctors who've been practicing, and they've secretly been struggling, and they wanted to be more extroverted, or they wanted to connect better with patients, and they asked me for tips because they knew I was a full-time illusionist and performer, and they may have heard me give lectures on speaking and communication. So I've had the good luck to share with those doctors, patient engagement tools, which helps them learn how to do things better, whether it's learning how to do magic in a clinical setting, or whether how we use our body language or voice coaching. How do we use language per se? How humor is easily adaptable in the clinical setting. So in turn, they were really able to help others and be their best and be happier in their workplace. So I thought these podcasts might be a greater way to reach more people who want to be better and create a healthier community, and also become better personally at work. And that always has a ripple effect in the other relationships and every other aspect of their life. So in these podcasts, it's my job to discuss ways and uncover tools and strategies to make this happen, and to do it in a fun way as well, so that we get a little closer to becoming better and less stressed doctors, and therefore feeling more fulfilled at our work and having greater joy, and to prevent burnout. And of course, this really plays out in our home life and our recreational life as well. So each podcast is going to deal with certain elements of a doctor's professional life, such as communication techniques, mindset, routines, habits, and behaviors. Now, for some of you, this may be just a review, while others, it may be new ideas, and while others, it'll be a refresher of concepts that you knew, but you know that you could do them better or more often. Plus, it could also be used to help teach other young learners. So I'd love to hear your feedback and comments about specific topics or situations you'd like me to address. So please send them to me via theintroverteddoctor.com or magicandmedicine.ca. I'm also planning to have some really amazing guests with other doctors to share their perspectives and ideas and learn a little bit more about them and learning about their life and what makes them tick. So I think you'll really enjoy that. So here's a summary of this podcast and some take-home points. If you struggle with being more of an extrovert or relating with your patients, you're not alone. If you also have that challenge with colleagues or certain staff, I've been there, and there are real tangible ways to dealing with those situations too. There are systems, tools, and simple techniques to improve our outwardly communication, and it's easy to become more elegant and efficient as an introvert without changing who you are. There are really 3 areas that determine our long-term success, whether it's our technical ability or how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. And all of that is really connected. I really hope you'll take this journey with me and enjoy these podcasts, and that they may serve you and others so that we can become better at our work and learn to connect better with patients and do it easily and not feel so stressed about it. I hope this podcast served you in some way. Note, the next 3 upcoming podcasts are going to be dealing with actual communication techniques that can be used with people and patients. And then in the future, I'll be having some real great guests. So I'm really excited about some of those guests and people you more than likely have heard about. Now, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please share this with a friend or colleague and subscribe to us in iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, or your other favorite podcast app. And don't forget to leave a rating. I know this seems like a small thing, but it really makes a difference in terms of helping others find this podcast. I'm Dr. Lalit Chawla, and thank you so much for listening. And please share this again. And just a little lesson or reminder is one of the greatest ways to serve people. Let's together make a greater, more effective community and inspire people to be their best. Thank you so much and have a great day.